everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we continue studying the controls of ISO 27001, which is Annexure 5.3 Segregation of Duties. If you are someone who's working on information security or you're preparing for your ISO 27001 certification or you are working in compliance, then this control is extremely important. So let's simplify it. What is Annexure 5.3 segregation of control say? It says conflicting duties and conflicting areas of responsibility should be segregated. What does this mean? Let's understand this with an example. Say you're working for an organization and you are submitting your expenses. Okay, maybe your travel expenses. So if you submit your travel expenses, then your manager will approve it and then it goes to the finance team who will review it and then they will disburse the amount. This is the actual process, right? So here you see the different roles. One is the approver, one is the person who will review it, and then the cashier is going to release the amount. Correct? So these are the different roles. This is what the control says. It says that to perform any action in an organization, you should have people at people at different roles performing different actions. Imagine a person is submitting his expenses, he himself is approving it, and then he himself is dispersing the amount. Do you think he will do a fair job? Will he not be biased? Let's understand this from an IT perspective as well. I'll give you another example. Say you are the person who is a developer, and there is another team who does the testing of your code. And then there is another team who releases the change. Imagine if you are the person who's developing, and then if you are the only person who's also testing, then there is again room for errors, right? There's room for any fraud as well. So these are conflicting duties. ISO control clearly says that for different tasks, you have to involve different people so that you can avoid conflict of interest. It is important to avoid these conflicting roles so that you can reduce the fraud error or bypass any security controls. Let's read this again. Conflicting duties. So, what are the conflicting duties here? Approving and releasing the amount and submitting. So, these are the conflicting duties, right? So, conflicting duties and conflicting areas of responsibility should be segregated. And what is the purpose of this control? It is to reduce the risk of fraud, error, and also bypassing information security controls. Let's move further to understand what the guidance says. So, guidance in ISO controls are just to give you more information about how it can be implemented. Segregation of duties and areas of responsibility aim to separate conflicting duties between different individuals in order to prevent one individual from executing potential conflicting duties on their own. Why are they having segregation of duties? So that they can prevent the conflict. Organization should determine which duties and areas of responsibility need to segregate. It doesn't say that admin should have different duties and a developer should have a different duties. It doesn't define anything as such. It says you know your organization better, you should know your roles and responsibilities better, and based on that you segregate your duties. It doesn't give you any roles, it doesn't give you any templates as such. It says this is what we expect. The following are examples of activities that require segregation. It just gives you some examples so that you can clearly understand what is the expectations of ISO. Initiating, approving, and executing the change. See, for these three tasks you should have different people. That is what it says. If I am a change requester, then the approver should be a different person. Maybe your manager, he can review your change and he can approve it. He will just, when he approves this, he should keep in mind that, okay, what is the risk is involved when implementing the change, how much impact it is going to cause, and what are the benefits of this change. Like that, he will review, he will have his own conditions and he will look into those and then he will approve it. And then executing. So the person who will execute the change should be a different person. Requesting, approving, and implementing access rights. Access also, you cannot say, okay, I need admin access and I only will request, I only will approve. No, that is not going to happen. And then who will grant you the access should be a different team. Designing, implementing, reviewing the code, developing software, and administering production system, using and administering applications, using applications and administering databases. So if you're using an application, then the database team should be a different team. Signing, auditing, assuring information security controls. And even in information security controls, see, if I'm the person who is implementing the security controls, then you should have a different person who will audit it. I myself should not audit it. This happens in organizations. Why do they have a different auditor come and audit your controls, or have an audit in place? A third party will come and perform the audit. Why is that? So that there is segregation of duties. You cannot say, okay, we have controls and we have a person who is ISO certified, and he only is going to audit us. No, that is not going to work. ISO standards clearly says that a person who designs, who implements should be different, and a person who will audit the controls will be different. The possibility of collusion should be considered in designing the segregation of duties. So collusion is nothing but is when two to three people have the same duties. So that also should be avoided. One duty should be given to one person, and the other duty should be given to the other person. Small organization can find segregation of duties difficult to achieve, but the principle should be applied as far as possible and practicable. Are running a startup or you are a very small organization, in that case, what happens? For example, in that case, the HR only is going to do the policies, and the HR is also taking care of the finance of the organization. I have seen such organization because they're very small, right? They can't afford to have so many people. In that case, also ISO standards says that we understand that in small organization it is difficult, but try to implement this standard as much as possible. We will talk about this in detail, what a small organization should do in the coming slides. But for now, you understand that it says that as far as possible and practicable, please try to implement segregation of duties. Whenever it is difficult to segregate, other controls should be considered. Now, it talks about other controls. What are these other controls? These are called compensatory controls. So, for example, here in a small organization, say the small organization, no, boss, I cannot afford to have so many people in my organization to perform different tasks. I'm okay with one person performing the all tasks because my organization is very small. So, in that case, what should I do? In that case, it says try to have compensatory controls such as monitoring activities, audit trails, and management supervision. Talk about this in detail in the coming slide, but for now, just hold on to it. Care should be taken when using role-based access control system to ensure that a person are not granted conflicting roles. So whoever is providing access or approving access should ensure that the roles are clearly defined. The admin should have different activities, and who has read access should not have write access. Those kind of rules and responsibilities should be clearly defined so that there is no conflicting roles or there is no collusion. When there's a large number of roles, the organization should consider using automated tools to identify conflicts and facilitate their removal. So if very big organization, so it is always better to use some automated tools to check that there are no conflicting roles. Roles should be carefully defined and provisioned to minimize access problems if a role is removed or assigned. So be very careful in defining the roles and then granting the roles to minimize any access related problem. I was talking about this case, right? Sometimes you don't have enough staff or you're just a small company where you cannot have segregation of duties. In that case, how can you implement this control? Like you're in your organization, this HR team is only is handling finance as well as the HR rules. You should ensure first thing is you can raise this as a risk in your risk register. If you haven't seen my video where I talk about risk register in detail, I would suggest you go watch that video. It will give you more clarity on your risk register, how it has to be implemented. You can say, yes, we understand that this is a risk and we are working towards it. But these are the compensatory controls that we are having in place. This in mind. Whenever there is any control that is applicable to your organization, but due to some XYZ reason, you're not able to implement it, it could be financial reason, it could be any other reason. In that case, you should have compensatory controls. Compensatory controls are the controls which are an alternative and affordable. manageable kind of a control. Like in this scenario where the HR is doing the finance task as well as the HR roles, in that case, what you could do is you can have proper activity logging and monitoring. Keep auditing, have regular audits, have a logging and monitoring to see, okay, has this person, doing his task properly? Is he not committing any fraud? Is he not committing any error? Regularly audit, at a regular intervals, keep auditing, maybe in 1 month. Just take some logs and just review, okay, is he doing it right? Because you can't have a dedicated person doing segregation of duties. In that case, you have to spend some hours showing, okay, we have done regular audits, we are having active logging and monitoring in place, so we can prevent it. And you also prevent these collusion. These are the steps we are taking. What are the steps? Active monitoring and then regular audits and even management supervision, right? Manager can anytime do a check and see, okay, is he doing it right? So you can put these things in place and say, okay, these are our complementary controls. Sorry, these are our compensatory controls. And this is how we are making sure that we follow this segregation of duties and we know that this is a risk and we have highlighted it in our risk register. If you can show this to the auditor, you will not get a non-conformative. So that is what it says here, right? Small organization can find segregation of duties difficult to achieve, but the principle should be applied as far as if possible and practicable. Whenever it is difficult to segregate, other controls should be considered, such as monitoring of activities, audit trails, and management supervision. Now, what are the common non-conformatives in audit? When do you get a non-conformative for this control? Auditors frequently raise concerns or these non-conformatives for few of the reasons. Roles, you know that you have defined the roles. They are not formally assigned. In your tool, you're not showing, okay, this is admin, this is a L1 engineer, this is a L2 engineer. You don't have those defined in your tool. Then this becomes a non-conformative. See, ISO audit, when it happens, they will look for documents and some practical evidences. If you say, okay, we have defined it, but if you cannot prove it on your systems, if you cannot prove it on your tools, then it becomes a non-conformative. They need the evidence. Roles are defined but not formally assigned. Responsibilities exist in policy, but staff are unaware. If your staff is not aware of it, they'll randomly ask, whoever is presenting the audit, and then they will randomly call some people and ask, okay, tell me what are your roles and responsibilities. You know, if they fail to answer it, then that becomes a non-conformative. Lack of sufficient staff to perform segregation of duties. If you just say that, no, we don't have sufficient staff, so we are just having one person doing everything, then this will definitely come as a non-conformative. To come out of this, to ensure that this does not get flagged as non-conformative, just follow the compensatory controls that I told you, and then this should not come as a non-conformative for you. What are auditors' expectations and what are the audit evidence that we need? Auditor expect is you implement proper role-based access control. If you have this well-defined, auditor is happy. Auditor is happy, you're happy. Divide responsibility. They just want you to have, the roles divided, the responsibilities clearly divided. They just expect this from you. Prevent collusion. Not one person should do all the tasks. No single person should have complete control over a critical process. Whenever there is a critical process, no person should have a complete control over it. Make sure it has been divided. That's when you also come to the concept of dual responsibility. Right? Banking system, okay. If there is something called, say for example, I'm talking about cash here. There's some gold or cash locker. Say it has double door, okay. So first key will be with one person and the second key will be with another person. So no single person should have a complete control over the critical process. This is one simple example that I have given you. During certification audits, auditors may ask you these questions. Just be prepared for these questions. Do you have a documented role matrix, the RACI matrix that we talked in my previous video? It'll ask, they might ask you for the RACI matrix. Is there any access control policy? Is there any access control? How you're granting accesses in your team? Do you have a SOP for that? You can show that any process document, standard operating process document. You have that. They'll ask you for that as well. Who approves these privilege access? Who is the approver? How it is granted? Any developer and production roles separated? Are developer and production roles separated? They will ask you these questions. Then they will review your access control risk. They will check your role definitions, they'll check your change management record. In your tool, they may ask you, okay, show me who's the admin, who's the L1 engineer, who's the developer, who's the change approver. They want to see the proper evidence on the tool and as well as in your policy documents, as well as they may randomly pick anyone and say, okay, can you show me your roles and responsibilities in this tool? This was all about Annexure 5.3 segregation of duties. I hope this is very clear for you now. In my next video, we will be discussing Annexure 5.4 management responsibilities. Until then, thank you. Thank you for watching and goodbye for now.